This video was brought to you by CoolStuffInc.com. If you're looking to pick up pre-ordering singles or sealed product, use the link in the description below, the code KENOBI at checkout, get 5% off your order and a listed business person token with my likeness on it. What more could you ask for? Are you still excited about the Warhammer 40k previews and the Warhammer 40k decks that are coming? Well, shut up. Time is fleeting, as is any hype season in Magic the Gathering, and because of delays, the Warhammer decks and Unfinity are coming out on the same day, on October the 7th. For that reason, we've just finished the preview season for Warhammer 40k, and we're straight into Unfinity previews as well. Perpetual hype. Of course, there's some caveats to that. It's not as bad as it has been in the past because A, this is because of delays due to shipping and resources and problems, so can't be helped in that sense. And B, if we're real about it, the Warhammer 40k Commander decks and the Unfinity product kind of occupies a different space in terms of audience, although I don't know if that I don't know if that really flies, because both of these are pushed towards the casual audience, right? Commander players will be opening Infinity cards to not only chase the Shocklands, that's right, the Shocklands are back by the way, but also to chase some of the playable, eternally playable cards. My lights just came back on. So the color grading in this video is going to be weird. That's because I got someone working on my electrics downstairs. Anyway, for those of you who don't know, Unfinity is the latest silver border set, but instead of the silver bordering it, because that made cards not feel real and not be as sellable, we now have some of the cards being playable in Legacy, Commander, Pauper, and Vintage. Those cards have a normal hologram, like this. Yeah, I'm going to talk more about this card in just a second. And then we have the other cards that are not legal in those formats, unless you rule zero them, I guess, which have an acorn stamp that look like this. One thing that some people made the argument for, I think Brian was doing this in our podcast as well, is that at a glance you might not be able to tell which is which. And to a newer player, I agree. But to an experienced Magic the Gathering player, you can tell these are different. And the moment you know there's a difference between what's playable and what's not, it's clearly identifiable as which one of these are legal in Commander and so on, and which ones are just like essentially the old silver border. Anyway, with that out of the way, let's talk about the new Legacy legal Jace called Space Bellerin. Look, the name is a pun. I believe that pun was probably written down somewhere in development and then the build went from there. A top-down design, if you will, around a joke. And honestly, I kind of love it. Space Bellerin is a 4-mana Jace Planeswalker who enters the battlefield with 3 loyalty counts on him. And importantly, I'm going to unpack this some more in a moment, he's the first 2-color Jace we've ever had. And he is not a Mind Sculptor, but instead a Space Sculptor. Another pun on the iconic Jace the Mind Sculpt. In this case, Space Bellerin divides the battlefield into Alpha, Beta, and Gamma sectors. If a creature isn't assigned to a sector, its controller assigns it to one. Opponents assign first. And then there's a +1 where creatures in each sector can be blocked this turn only by creatures in the same sector, so it divides the battlefield up in terms of blocking and so on. His -1 puts a +1/+1 counter on each creature in the sector of your choice, and his -5 destroys all creatures in the sector of your choice. This card is fucking wild, and people are like saying, well, it's legal in Legacy, right? So this could cause some crazy board states. I'll be honest, this is not going to be powerful enough for Legacy plays. That's what I want them to do with anything that is playable in Legacy, is either not make it too complex, but make it powerful, so that it can be played in those formats, or if it's going to be a complex, weird oddity like this, make sure that power level is tuned down. Of course, you then you skirt around the idea that perhaps this card may then see no play. Like, why would someone play with this unless it's powerful enough to be played with? Well, the answer to that is if it's fun. I think this is fun. Perhaps the first couple of times you play it. Let's unpack what it does a bit more. So when it enters the battlefield, it makes 3 quadrants. It makes, not quadrants, sorry. I've already slipped up. Because they're named Alpha, Beta, and Gamma, I keep thinking of Star Trek and the quadrants, because the galaxy in Star Trek is split up into 4 quadrants, right? Alpha, Beta, Gamma, Delta? Yes, Delta. Either way, this is not quadrants, because there's not 4 of them, there's 3 of them. Maybe just to keep the complexity down, 4 would maybe have been too many, but I keep thinking it should be 4. I don't know why, it just groks as 4, but that might just be Star Trek polluting my mind. In essence, he creates 3 lanes. Think MOBAs, think Gwent, think, as I was thinking when I saw this, Soulforge Fusion, a game that I've been playing recently on stream as part of an integration with the company. That's actually really, really good. Let's just say that as well. Even though I'm getting paid to be on it, I think the game's actually fucking solid. But it's got 3 lanes where things do combat. It's MOBA-esque. The important thing though is when Space Bellerin enters the battlefield and we go into this MOBA lane stuff, the opponent assigns them first. Also, as an ETB, it divides, like it's almost like an action. Do they stay divided after Space Bellerin has been played? And then if you play a second Space Bellerin, does it divide them again? I don't know at that point. I don't know how that works in terms of multiple Space Bellerins. If you have 2 in play, if your opponent plays 1, do you redivide? or do you stay... Okay, that's some complexity. I don't even know where we would go with that. The important point, though, is that our opponent assigns them first. This means that you can put creatures into one of those zones that the opponent isn't in. And then when you uptick, those creatures are essentially unblockable. If your opponent divides their 2 creatures into lane, let's say A and C, you put all your creatures in lane B, uptick Jace, and suddenly they're all unblockable. This is really good if your opponent only has 2 creatures in play and you play this, because you're going to get in with all your stuff. The -1 puts +1/+1 counters on all creatures in one of these lanes, one of these, what they call it, sectors, which is also interesting, right? Because then if there is a lot of creatures on both sides, it's putting them on your opponent's creatures too. And then there's -5 to destroy all creatures in the sector of your choice. Again, if your opponent goes all in on putting them in one zone and you protect him, he'll be able to kill all the creatures in that zone. It's a cool, fun, and flavorful card. I actually really like the pun. I like the designing out of the pun. I like the idea that we've got Jace Bella in his hood is a... His hood is a fucking space mask. What's it called? Not a space mask. A dome helmet. An astronaut's helmet. He's got a jetpack on. He's very Buck Rogers. And he's got a space blaster. I thought, Mark Rosewater, I thought we weren't allowed guns in Magic the Gathering. Shake my damn head.
I need an apothecary.
I love the design and I think it's cool and fun. At least it will be fun initially. It might get tiresome, perhaps, once you play Space Ballad across several rounds at your pre-release. But that's going to be unlikely too as a mythic, right? It isn't that unusual, though, in terms of where normal card design goes. It's actually not dissimilar to Raging River, a 2-red mana enchantment. And I'm going to read the Oracle text for you, because the block text on this old printing is just fucking... It's messy and hard to read, but whenever one or more creatures you control attack, each defending player divides all creatures without flying they control into left pile and right pile. Then for each attacking creature you control, choose left or right. That creature can't be blocked this combat except by creatures with flying or creatures in a pile of the chosen label. So basically each time you go to combat, starting with the defending player, you put all your creatures into 2 different zones, 2 different lanes, 2 different sides of the Raging River, and then flyers don't get involved in that though. And then at that point, you can only block what's on your side of the river, and the attacking player gets to choose which side they attack on. By the way, this card is only available in Alpha and Beta and Unlimited, so the cheapest version outside of the Gold Border Collector's Editions is $316. The Collector Edition ones being $44 each, and also Black Border, so it looks a bit nicer than this fucking Unlimited one I put on screen. Of course, if you were to have a Jace divide the battlefield into sectors, and then you were to cast a Raging Ravine and go to combat, Raging Ravine, sorry, that's a land, Raging River and go to combat, you'd now have 3 sectors, each of which have rivers coursing through the middle of them. Yeah. And like I mentioned, this is the first Bellerin to be 2 colours. He is blue and he is white. I think it's interesting that they decided to make him white for these effects. I mean, destroy all creatures in a lane is very white. Put counters on things is very white. But the lane distribution and the creation of lanes, well, the precedent was red. And of course, the precedent comes from the first 3 sets of Magic with Raging River. But also, I can see blue being someone who gets to set those rules in some ways. Although, again, it feels very white. In many ways, the only bit that feels blue is the fact that A, it's Jace, and B, it's got can't be blocked on it. Maybe it should have been... Maybe this sector thing should have been a white Planeswalker. But that said, it's Space Bellerin. What I would like to see is more puns and space-themed things. Or Space Bellerin was the starting point that got extrapolated, right? It was the top-down design base of a pun. And then beyond that, we get other Planeswalkers in space. I would like that a lot. I'm also a sucker for some retro sci-fi. So if they've all got like jetpacks and blaster guns and like flimsy batons and they look like they're from the Star Trek the original series or Buck Rogers, then I'm all for it. What about a Khan that looks like a Cylon from the original Battlestar Galactica? One other thing I want to touch upon here is that people have in the past been saying that Magic doesn't take itself seriously enough anymore, and that its established canon and aesthetics and visual style is no longer much of a concern for itself. And I can see where they're coming from with that when we have techno-punk Kamigawa and 1920s gangsters New York Capenna, and then we have Warhammer getting inserted, and we've got Doctor Who coming, and now we've got Space Bellerin. I get where you're coming from, but ultimately I don't really see it as much of a problem because it's fun. When Ajani got like the cable treatment in his Secret Lair, I thought that was fun. Kamigawa was jarring at first, but now we've gone past it. I don't feel like it was that jarring as part of Magic being this expansive canvas on which we can play, both mechanically, flavorfully, and with art and aesthetics. If anything, I don't think this will kill Magic. It'll kill... Not kill. Kill's a hard word, a harsh word. It's an interesting element to Magic. That Magic becomes more than its original premise. And people who are super into the lore and that in particular are going to maybe be felt left high and dry when we have so much focus like we have over the last few months, or even the last 6 months, let's say, with this Warhammer, New Capenna, Kamigawa and such. But I think for the whole, it grows Magic and allows the Magic to expand, to move beyond its initial trappings. I think the Magic game system itself is probably the best game system ever made, even with the RNG element of the resource system. I actually think that's a bonus in a lot of ways. So it's cool to see Magic expand. I'm into it. But what do you think? Are you pissed off with space? Do you hate space? The one place not touched by capitalism? Let me know what you think in the comment section below. I've been Vince, also known as PleasantKenobi on the internet. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all soon. Ta-ta for now.